Hello, YouTube. I am today going to talk a little bit about some things I've been thinking about regarding artifacts that we find in the woods and their meaning, and why I am going to return my artifacts that I've found to where I found them. This is a complicated topic, and I figured today would be a good day to talk about it. I am home. My ankle is sprained, so I can't go hiking, and I can't really make any of my usual videos for you right now. I have to give my ankle a rest so that it heals. Also, it's raining outside, so I can't. It's not a nice day to go hiking. You'll hear a lot of background noise from a busy street, I think. The cars going by in the rain makes a lot of noise, so. But I figured on this rainy day we'd talk about artifacts, and there are a lot of YouTube channels out there that document people finding artifacts like arrowheads and hand axes and scrapers and fishing weights and all sorts of things that native peoples across America and other countries have left behind as modern society took over, right? And these lands, we have to acknowledge that people lived here before we were here, right? Like, before Philadelphia was called Philadelphia, this area had another name. There were various villages here. The people who lived here were called the Lenape, and this general area was called Lenapehoking. So we have to remember that, right? We often, when we think of ancient history, we think of places like Egypt, or Roman history, or places that or like the Aztecs maybe. But we have to remember that in America there have been people living here for over 10,000 years. Now there's new archaeology evidence coming out that people have lived here for maybe 15 or 16,000 years. So there's a lot of ancient history in this landscape. And when we find these artifacts, to me, we're finding pieces of that ancient history. And when I was younger, I would go out into the woods and I would look for these artifacts, and I would be very excited to find them because they're like treasures, right? And there's a bit of a feeling of, I'm like Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, or, National Treasure. I'm Nicolas Cage finding something ancient left behind by the Masons or something like that, And that's a very nostalgic feeling, and I love treasure hunting, and I love finding artifacts myself. But as I've gotten older, I've realized, these artifacts are actually kind of sad, because they represent a culture that is no longer here and that was pushed out of their homeland by settlers from a foreign land, right? And, that's very sad. The Lenape, they lived here for thousands of years before the settlers from Europe came, and they were pushed out in very violent ways, and economic deprivations, and mostly, honestly, it was disease. A lot of the reasons that Lenape no longer exist in Lenapehoking and Philadelphia have to do with disease. First, when the first settlers came over, when the first contact happened, smallpox especially, but other diseases came with the settlers, and smallpox just devastated all the Lenape communities. And there's estimates out there that in the Americas in general, over 95% of the people who lived here died before there was anyone from the colonial settlers meeting them. Like, basically what happened is the boats came over, made contact, and then went home to Europe. And when they made contact, all of the people, like 95% of the people in the Americas died, so that when the real settlers got here, when the first settlers really started making colonies, the Lenape and other Native American groups and South American groups and First Nations people didn't have the numbers to resist, right? They didn't have the numbers to resist an invasion into their homeland. So, as I've come to understand this dynamic, as we've, grown up and educated ourselves, I've learned about these things. And I'm from Philadelphia, and I was born here and raised here, and I don't have any cultural ties to Lenape people. My background is from other people that have suffered colonial, settler colonial dynamics in their own homelands, and then my ancestors came here as refugees, essentially, from those situations. So, I understand that I connect with that history on a personal level just from my own background, but I don't as a person who was born in Philly, I wish I knew these things about Lenape, and I wish I knew growing up. I wish I knew that we lived in this kind of a land where, it has that dark history, right? That dark past. And now that I'm older and I've walked around the landscape and I find these little artifacts wherever I go, they become symbols of this ancient history, this lost past, this injustice, really, that the people who lived here before for 10,000 years, for thousands and thousands of years, the people who lived here are no longer here. They're gone. I mean, it's sort of a misnomer to say they're gone, because a lot of Lenape are still in Philadelphia, and there are a lot of Lenape people who have married into and started families with settlers, but they remember their heritage. So there are Lenape groups in Lenapehoking. There are Lenape groups in America, and the federally recognized tribe of Lenape is out in Oklahoma. So in Oklahoma there are Lenape, but so I'm not saying that they're completely erased. They're not completely gone. But generally speaking, I've never met a Lenape person, right? Have you? I don't think anyone in Philly can say not many people can say in Philadelphia that they've ever met someone who has Lenape ancestry. And that's weird, because this land is Lenape land. It was, right? It was. And then it was more or less taken from them by settlers. So anyway, all of that's to say, when I find these artifacts, they're little bits of that old history, that old, that people that were once here that are no longer here. And it makes me feel strange now. Now that I'm older, it makes me feel sad and strange to take these artifacts out of the landscape. Like if I find an artifact and I remove it from the landscape where these people who once lived here, where they dropped it in the land, and now I'm removing it, I feel like in some way I'm contributing to the erasure of their culture, right? Like it's almost like if you go to ancient Egypt and you take a chunk out of the pyramids as a souvenir, right? Like you wouldn't do that. Or some people would, but it's sort of in bad taste, right? You wouldn't go to the Stonehenge and take a chunk out of the stone from Stonehenge and keep it for yourself. It sort of feels wrong to me. And now I've sort of realized that I feel that way about artifacts I've found too. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to put some pictures of artifacts that I've found in the past that I've returned to the landscape. And I'll also let you know that in the future, I still have some artifacts. I'm not going to show them now because I've also learned that showing these artifacts can be a little bit maybe disrespectful to Lenape. I want to get some clarity on this, but at least the ones that I have put back, I feel it's okay maybe to show those because they've lost their archaeological context. They're no longer in the context where the Lenape dropped them, and that happened due to natural processes, because where I found them was on the side of a river, the Delaware River, and the river had washed these artifacts out of the banks where there were Lenape villages, and the artifacts had washed out of the Lenape villages and into the river, and I just picked them out of the water. So there wasn't much information that could be recovered in terms of history or archaeological context, and they're not associated with any burial sites that I know about specifically, although I'm sure that there were burial sites around those villages. So it's a little fraught, but I still feel like it's okay, and maybe if any Lenape are watching, hopefully they understand why I'm showing this. I want to demonstrate that it's okay to return these artifacts to the landscape, and I want to show people who have found artifacts First of all, I think people who generally find these artifacts are, it's good if anybody's going to find artifacts and arrowheads and take them and keep them, it's usually the people who find them care about them. So I think in some ways it's actually really good if if anyone's going to find them and keep them, it's the people who find them and keep them. They're in good hands, those artifacts. So I also want to say that when I found these artifacts, I was aware enough to say a little prayer. I'm not very religious or spiritual, but I do feel like I come from different spiritual, cultural, religious backgrounds. So I said prayers from those backgrounds that mean something to me, and I asked the ancestors for permission to take these artifacts with me, and so that those artifacts could travel with me on my journey for a time, and I respected them very deeply and I cared for them. And then I returned them back to the landscape. So I just want to put that out there that like I did my best to be respectful to these artifacts, but I have put them back now, so I don't have them to show you. All I have are pictures. So I'll show you some pictures now of the artifacts, where I put them back and where I found them, and hopefully starts a little bit of a discussion about, as artifact hunters, do we feel like it's okay to actually keep these artifacts now that we know the past, now that we know that these artifacts are actually kind of sad. They're relics of a past genocide, a past colonial settler dynamic, and they represent something that is wrong. It represents something that is, full of pain for a whole group of people who are maybe not here to really represent themselves anymore. These artifacts are the representation of that pain, So I just wanted to start that discussion on this channel, because in this channel I do visit a lot of Lenape sites, and I've had some contact with Lenape people now, especially after my video where I found the burial site of probably someone who was a Lenape sachem named Alumapis. I'll put that, hopefully that will be linked somewhere here or here, so you can go watch that video. But after that video, I had some conversations with Lenape about these things, and I've come to understand how they feel. So I want to be more respectful about this going forward. And when I show these sites, I want to be very clear that I'm not trying to contribute to the further destruction of their culture by removing anything, and anything that I have removed before I learned these things, I want to put back. So there are going to be some videos where I go put some things back where I found them in the future. So that's really it. My name is Sean. This is my channel, Saul Good, and I appreciate you. Let's think deeply about this. I'm open to all ideas. Let me know what you have to say, and if I'm off base in any way, please correct me in the comments. We're all learning on this journey together. So yeah. Again, my name's Sean. This is my channel, Saul Good. Please give me a subscribe if you feel like this is something you want to talk about or follow me along on, and give me a like for the video. And also my members, I'm doing membership stuff, so the member channel is open. Please join the membership. Thanks again. All right, bye.